Have you ever wondered what's really going on inside the Department of Justice when those huge breaking news stories hit? Well, today, we're pulling back the curtain. We've got an exclusive inside look at the DOJ's strategy during one of the most intense periods you can imagine. Okay, so let's set the scene. The time is late summer 2022, and the news cycle is just on fire with these high-stakes investigations, political attacks, and just immense public pressure. It was basically an environment of nonstop chaos. But you have to wonder, right? Beyond all that noise and the 24/7 headlines, what were the department's actual priorities? What were the challenges they were truly focused on inside their own walls?
So, how do we find out what was going on? Well, our guide for all this is an internal policy memo written for the DOJ's top leadership. And it gives us this incredible strategic snapshot of exactly what the department was juggling.
All right, first up, the cases that, let's be honest, everyone was talking about. These national security investigations weren't just legally complicated. They were all happening in what the memo itself calls a hyper-partisan environment. And the details from the Mar-a-Lago investigation are just wild. You've got the DOJ filing, which alleges that records were likely concealed and removed, basically suggesting deliberate obstruction. Then the search itself turns up over 11,000 documents. But here's the kicker. They also find 48 empty folders with classified markings, which of course raises the big question, where did the contents go? All this leads to a huge legal fight over a special master to review the docs, something the DOJ fought tooth and nail, warning it posed a grave risk to national security. And this slide, wow, it just perfectly captures the political vice the department was in. On one side, you have former Attorney General William Barr saying, hey, as more facts come out, what the DOJ did starts to make more sense. And on the other, you have figures like former House Speaker Newt Gingrich calling the department flat out corrupt. I mean, you can just feel the intense, conflicting pressure they were navigating from every direction. At the very same time, the huge prosecution effort for the January 6th attack was moving at full speed. This memo points out a record 10-year sentence for a former police officer, which really shows how serious the consequences were becoming. But the investigation was also clearly getting wider, reaching into the highest levels of the previous administration, with subpoenas flying out to senior advisors and even getting testimony from the former White House counsel. You know, the national security threats weren't just domestic, not by a long shot. The document lays out this global fight against cyber threats. We're talking actions against a Russian energy firm for violating sanctions, a first-of-its-kind recovery of millions in crypto stolen by North Korean hackers, and sanctions against Iran for a cyber attack on a NATO ally. It really paints a picture of this massive digital battlefront that spans the entire globe. Okay, so while those big cases were dominating the news, the memo makes it crystal clear that they're just a tiny fraction of the DOJ's real work. So let's shift gears and look at the department's core mission, the stuff that happens beyond the big headlines. And that work, it happens on a massive scale. I mean, look at this. Prosecuting a single Ponzi scheme in Florida worth $196 million, that one case affected over 15,000 investors. And it also means fighting huge healthcare fraud. For example, a lab owner who allegedly billed Medicare for $53 million in tests that were completely unnecessary. And it goes all the way down to tackling pandemic-related fraud, with over $2.5 million in restitution ordered in just one COVID-19 relief case. Each one of these numbers represents a massive effort to protect the country's economic integrity. And beyond white-collar crime, the memo gets into the frontline battle against violent gangs. We see these major indictments against MS-13, guilty pleas from members of the Ghostface gangsters who were charged under those powerful anti-racketeering laws, and a long, long prison sentence for a hitman. This is that dangerous, on-the-ground work of taking organized crime apart. So alongside all those criminal prosecutions, the memo really emphasizes another foundational pillar of the DOJ's mission, and that's the enforcement of civil rights. It's truly core to what they do. And this work covers a huge range. We're talking about everything from overseeing police reforms to stop excessive force, to investigating racial discrimination in schools. It means protecting the rights of people with disabilities and fighting housing discrimination based on sexual orientation. Every single case here is a defense of fundamental American rights. Now you have to remember, all of this, the high-profile cases, the financial fraud, the civil rights work, was all happening under an intense microscope. So let's look at the immense external pressures the memo lays out. The department was just getting hammered from both sides. You had the House Republican leader calling the Mar-a-Lago search an assault on democracy. And at the same time, President Biden was criticizing opponents for targeting the FBI. It created this total no-win situation where the department was going to face accusations of being political no matter what it did.
So, how do you manage that kind of chaos? Well, the memo reveals a really key internal move. Attorney General Garland reissued a directive, reminding all personnel of a very strict, long-standing policy. Every bit of communication with Congress had to go through a single office. This was a clear attempt to enforce discipline and make sure they were speaking with one unified voice.
But the pressure wasn't just political. The memo highlights a really chilling assessment from the FBI, something about the physical safety of its own agents. And here it is, the direct quote. The FBI reported an unprecedented threat environment. And listen, these weren't just vague worries. The memo specifies direct threats being made against federal law enforcement. This just completely elevated the stakes from a political fight to a direct matter of personal safety for the people doing this work. So when you put it all together, what this internal memo really shows us is a department performing a constant high-wire balancing act. On one hand, you've got them managing these historically sensitive, explosive cases. And on the other, they're just trying to execute their vast everyday mission, all while under a level of political pressure and physical threat that they themselves describe as unprecedented. And that really leaves us with this central question that this whole snapshot in time poses, doesn't it? In a nation that's so deeply polarized, so divided, with pressure coming from all sides, how does an institution that's charged with impartial justice actually manage to stay the course?